Welcome to another Trackmania Turbo Trackmaster tutorial. This one is again with F1 and it's the very next event. It's number 32. The second one that you do with the F1 car, and honestly this one's a whole heck of a heap harder than the first one. F1 car again, easy to drive, so it's more learning the track than the car. But anyway, let's get into it so you can learn the track. Start off is easy enough to stay in the middle there so you can make the jump. No steering movements needed yet, just full throttle. If you do that, you're pretty much good to this section, but this is where it starts getting kind of hard. It's a pretty fun track to do once you get a rhythm going, but it's sort of hard to get that rhythm actually started, because you could angle out some to try to do that first turn better, but if you do that, you run more risk of steering too early into it and then hitting that thing. So instead, I stay of more of a smaller angle into it and sort of just start steering to the right, like no steering to the left, aka angling out. And either way, you still make that first turn anyway. And if you don't carry much angle into that turn, you're actually already wider out for the next turn. Granted, you may be able to carry more overall speed going wider in and then just angling your car out later on, because you have a good bit of room here on this small straightaway to be able to go out for the next turn if you do decide to go wider angle to the first turn. But either way, it's full throttle, and overall either way would be Trackmaster, and that's just the easier way for me doing it. Next turn though, you do want to be all the way out, whether you go out on your own or it naturally goes out, and then get all the way to that apex completely, and then that will naturally carry out a little bit, but not enough to make it hard for this turn. This turn's pretty easy. If you got the last turn on the apex, this turn should be pretty easy to hit the apex. The next turn though is a bit harder, because you want to be able to get off at just enough of an angle to avoid hitting that wall. But you can't go too wide around this turn, or you're just not going to make it. And also, for the next turn, you don't just have to worry about that turn, you have to worry about hitting that as well. So you actually can't go too wide, even though in theory wide would help for the next turn. In reality, it's not that big of a deal. There's a little bit of risk of running too wide around this turn, but there's a pretty good margin for error there. Also, when you don't take all that much of an angle out of that turn, you're already in the middle for this jump too. The jump itself doesn't matter too much because it's nearing the end. So if you're more on the right, it's not that big of a deal. But still, overall middle's better just because it's safer. As you can see there, I was even in the middle and I still skidded a little bit. No big deal, because either way it's still Trackmaster, but whatever. Again, this is all full throttle. Just it's a whole heck of a heap harder than the last one, because it's a lot narrower of margins between hitting walls. Last one, there's really only about 1 point where you hit a wall. This one, there's like 3 or 4. Also, that showed in the rankings too. I still managed to be first in Kentucky, but everything else was sort of lower. This one took a lot longer to do, and it sort of ended up being about the same in rankings. There's less people in this one, but the numbers are lower. I'm not a math major, I don't know. Either way, I still did good for my overall for here. That's because I like the car more. But this one is most definitely harder. It is doable though, as long as you get the angles right while full throttle and don't hit anything. Sort of kind of like the last one, you're good. This one's probably going to take more practice than the last one, but it is definitely doable. Hope y'all enjoyed this, and as always,